Hello, and welcome to another live reading. Today, I will be continuing and completing Singularity of Purpose, which is a Christian dystopian science fiction short story that I wrote towards the end of 2018, and I'm happy to bring it to you today. So let's just dive into it. For the first time, Garma saw the true steel behind Ginevria's presence. I didn't get where I am by being careless or stupid. I've been around you a long time, Ginevria divulged. You're smart, cunning, and brash. I was expecting you to hand deliver me a spaceship. You had already assassinated the crew. What went wrong? Garma's eyes widened considerably at that revelation, and she shook her head, mouth open. There it is again, that innocent look, Ginevria snarled. I haven't seen that since you were a kid. I have a hard time believing the military would send such an incompetent impostor into my ranks, so I'll ask again. Who are you? Garma took a deep breath, praying for the right words to say. Then she put her right foot on the hilt of the blade and slowly pushed it flat to the ground. She did not lift her foot from the knife. I'm not the person you knew. I am Garima Jane, not Garima Gentios, and I was born human. A heartbeat later, Ginevria was in her face. Her hand was closed around Garima's throat, and she had a different blade in her other hand. Explain. Slowly, she insisted. Garima's heart was like a jackhammer, and she thought she might be hyperventilating. And then a focused sense of calm filled her. She felt assured that she would not be killed by this woman. A moment later, she told Ginevria what she had pieced together since her participation in the experiment on her Earth. She related her theories about what had happened. She also described what she tried to do to go back and how it hadn't worked. Finally, she shared how she survived the crash. Ginevria said nothing, but she looked furious. She was teary-eyed as she let Garma go. Garma coughed as she stumbled backwards, slightly massaging her tender throat. The other woman picked up her short blade from the dirt. You're saying my Garma is either trapped in a human body in another universe, Ginevria said, or maybe she's dead. I don't want to believe she's dead. Doesn't matter what we want, does it? Ginevria snapped. She's gone and you're here. That's the way it is. I'm sorry. Garma refused to accept the possibility of the other Garma's death. It was too final, like being exiled to this freakish body and locked into this existence. She had to get back. Couldn't she just wake up in the lab and laugh at this crazy dream? Jared and Patrice should treat her to pizza for scaring her like this. Thinking about these possibilities made her see that, as grateful as she'd been for her life, she appreciated it all the more now. She felt cut off from everyone, even her humanity. She started to feel faint and quickly sat down on the ground, letting her arms fall at her sides, her neck almost limp. All you have is me. She didn't hear the voice so much as feel it. It resonated within her, and she knew it was the Lord, a spark of hope in the midst of her mounting despair. She grasped at it with her whole being, feeling a profound solace as tears streamed down her long cheeks. Ginevria balked at Garma's unexpected emotionalism. She made a huffing sound and looked away. Garma was a little hurt by Ginevria's response, but she kept that to herself. She decided not to hold that against her. She was feeling better and wanted to hold on to that. She exhaled in relief and wiped some tears from her eyes. Kebron Olastor was running out of patience. The 7-foot-tall resistance operative had finished cataloging everything that had been retrieved from the crashed portscape. He was waiting at the edge of camp for his leader to return. He did not know why the group was not underway already, since Ginevria had told Maltic they would be leaving at dawn. That was already 40 minutes past. He spotted Renee Corithar sprinting out of the woods. Olastor had sent her to do a final reconnaissance of the area. She was 19, one of the fastest runners, and had unparalleled martial arts skills. Her expression was cold, but she didn't seem stressed. "What's out there, Renee?" "Nothing but forest, mountains, and soil, Kebron." "No military presence at all? Not even any flyovers?" "Nothing," she said with a hint of unease. "When are we getting out of here?" Olastor looked over in the direction of the mountain to the east of camp and back at Corithar. "As soon as Genevria gets back with Garma," he replied. Corithar looked like she was about to walk over to one of the trucks, but she turned her head to look at Olastor. "Kebron?" "Yeah, Renee?" "What's going on with Garma and Genevria?" "I have no idea. Whatever it is, Genevria will handle it." "Right," Corithar nodded. Olastor knew what he'd told Corithar was correct, but it didn't make the waiting any easier. The walk back to the shelter camp seemed longer than before. The first hint of sunlight was appearing on the horizon. Birds were stirring or flying over the trees nearby. Insects were heard all around, buzzing and making various noises. Genevria saw a few alighting on rocks and branches as they continued their stroll. Both women remained quiet. Garma appeared to be in deep thought or perhaps some kind of meditation. Genevria wasn't sure if Garma was doing better or had gone mad. Finally, she spoke up. "Where you come from, you humans have never seen or met my people?" "No," Garma replied. She paused briefly. "What are your people called?" "Fintani." "Are the Fintani from this world?" Garma asked. "Not originally, no. My sister and I were born here, but our parents were not." As they followed a dry creek bed through an otherwise very rocky terrain, Garma spotted a majestic hawk gliding slowly downwards from the mountain. She considered that it was probably looking for a meal on the ground. She heard the other woman clear her throat. It seemed that Genevria expected some kind of response from her. Garma peered down at her long legs. She had on dark gray pants she'd been wearing since she first woke up after the crash, along with a long-sleeved gray sweatshirt and black boots that fit her long and narrow feet. The question returned that had been burning at her since she first saw her changed face on the portscape. She felt frustrated, embarrassed, and utterly conflicted about herself. "What am I?" Garma exclaimed as she stopped, her eyes pleading for an answer. Genevria continued on, nonplussed by Garma's emotionalism. "You are Humani, the offspring of a Fintani, my sister, and a human," she replied. "Your sister married a human and they had me?" Genevria stopped and looked at Garma with a mixture of derision and amusement. She sighed. "No, nothing so romantic as that," Genevria answered. "All humans have been forced to give blood samples since the cessation. The DNA in human blood is compatible with the Fintani. She was given an injection and you were born 7 months later. She had no idea who your father was and didn't care." Garma was confused. "Wait, why would Fintani want to do that?" Genevria pondered the best way to reply. "I only know what I learned from the history files," Genevria said. "The order to create Humani was originally issued from the Quorum, the Fintani ruling body, after the cessation. Now Humani outnumber both humans and Fintani. How is that possible? Are there 8 billion of us or something? Last I heard, Humani numbered at least 3 billion worldwide." That was stunning to Garma. "What happened to everyone else? On my Earth, there's over 7 billion humans." "The majority were killed prior to the cessation," Genevria replied calmly. Garma clenched her fists in renewed frustration. "That's the 3rd time you've mentioned the cessation. Can you tell me what this is?" "It happened on October 31st, 1968. It's when humans ceded control of this world to the Fintani." Garma shook her head in disbelief. She next spoke at a very low volume. "Why?" "They didn't have a choice." Genevria began to walk again, stepping out of the creek bed onto a grassy path that led into the woods, since the camp was on the other side. Garma followed, but her slow pace and downward-facing expression broadcast just how emotionally numb she was feeling. Garma took comfort from knowing the Lord was still with her. It just hurt her to know about the suffering inflicted here. She prayed for guidance and understanding about these different peoples and even herself. She didn't know if she would ever get used to how alien she felt in her own skin. Genevria halted abruptly and turned her head in irritation. Garma! Garma was startled to attention. Look, you and I need to reach an understanding. Like it or not, you're in my niece's body, so that makes you family in a way. I need to be able to trust you, and you need to trust me too. Garma looked skyward with her eyes, then closed them. She took a deep breath. All right, I'll put my trust in you, she said with a slight tremble in her voice. Her eyes projected how vulnerable she felt. She continued to silently pray even more earnestly as she learned more about her circumstances. I am doing all I can not to be scared of this world. From what you've told me, it's a cruel place. And I'm terrified that maybe you're right. Maybe your niece did die. Maybe that's why I can't get back. If that's true, it means my body, my real body, is dead too. I have a soul. We all do. But my soul is in this body now. If my human body is dead, then that makes this humani body like a prison to me. She couldn't believe she had said those words, but they reflected her feelings. Garma gripped her arms and looked away for a moment. When she met Genevria's gaze again, she was tearing up. I may look like your niece to you, but to me, for the first time, Genevria appeared somewhat sympathetic. She stayed where she was, but her anger and frustration were gone. You think you look like a monster, Genevria acknowledged somberly. My people must seem like that to you, right? Garma's lack of a response was its own answer. Would it surprise you if I said I agreed with you? Genevria admitted. Garma's jaw dropped. What? 15 years ago, I accepted the blood of a human and had a humani son. In him, I saw the good of both of our peoples, and I could no longer accept either species as lesser. I found others who felt as I did, and we took our concerns to the quorum. Genevria sighed and then pointed at the scar on her cheek. It did not go well. I lost everything except my son, and I gained the people in this resistance. The Fintani consider me a traitor. Garma looked Genevria in the eyes and knew she was being sincere. Genevria took the longer knife from its sheath on her belt and held it chest high. The sun's red and yellow light began to glimmer off of it. She tossed it in the air and effortlessly caught it with the same hand. Without hesitation or looking, she hurled it to her left. The blade impaled a wild dog in the head. It barely had time to yelp before it collapsed in a heap on the grass. Garma briefly screamed in surprise, staring at the bloodied animal. Then she looked at Genevria, realizing she had saved them both. When you don't have much, you protect what you have, Genevria answered. Genevria offered her hand to Garma, who skittishly reached out and took it. She led Garma back to the camp in silence. The caravan of 4 trucks drove off from where the camp had been. A humani on a motorcycle had left before them to scout ahead with instructions to radio Genevria concerning any potential threats or obstacles. Genevria and Garma were in the leading truck. It was now almost mid-morning. The skies remained sunny and there were few clouds. Genevria told Garma the caverns were 2 days' journey in front of them if they didn't run into any delays. The old trucks didn't absorb shocks well, but Garma almost didn't mind. It was reassuring in its own way to be in a vehicle she was familiar with, even if it did look like something from another time. It was as out of place here as she was, but still functional and being put to good use. Is it the same for me, Garma thought? Lord, is this why I was torn from my body and abandoned here? Who has abandoned you? The voice was once again only for her to hear. She reflected on it as she looked out the vehicle window, following the majestic mountains. They reminded her of God and His strength, the foundation He gave to her. In that moment, she realized that while she had taken comfort from his presence, she had not been leaning on him. She had been letting herself flail about, fighting what had happened, resisting something unique he had done just for her. She didn't understand it, but she didn't have to. She only had to trust God, and that meant letting go of her preconceptions, fears, and doubts. She had to accept that she was supposed to be here. Garma felt like she had been balled up inside ever since she found herself back on the portscape. She had been struggling to keep her sanity and control over her emotions. Initially, that had been to stay alive and find out what was going on. But she hadn't released that grip, and now it was time to. With a wordless prayer, she took her figurative hands away from the wall she'd been holding up and let it collapse. In that moment, she was flooded with a torrent of grief, loss, and fear. That manifested in the vehicle through her tears, heaving sobs, and a look of anguish across her face and in her eyes. But in the midst of it, the warmth of hope permeated her entire being. It didn't stop the hurt, but it helped her endure it. Ginevra had been stunned to see Garma burst into tears. Even though she knew this young woman was another personality, this display solidified that. Her niece had never been so emotionally expressive since joining the resistance. The Garma she knew was cold and ruthless, an excellent assassin and operative. Ginevra had seen the pride her niece took in her work and helping their efforts. She wouldn't let herself be weighed down by sentimentality. The heartache this Garma was sharing was too real to be ignored. The reality that her own niece was dead and gone clawed at her viciously. It was inescapable, as was the fact that this was another Garima, one whose essence was human, not humani, and she was suffering even more than Ginevra. Let it all out, was all that Ginevra could say, starting to choke up. She continued to hold the steering wheel with her left hand, but put her hand on Garima's shoulder for a few seconds. Shaking her head briefly, she fought off her own tears. Garma cried until she fell asleep exhausted. The next day passed almost entirely without incident. Then the radio squawked to life, startling Garma more than Ginevra. "Halt the convoy! I repeat, halt the convoy!" a panicked male voice said through the static-filled connection. Ginevra slowed the truck to a stop, and the other vehicles did the same. Garma felt fearful as Ginevra ripped at the CB radio microphone and pulled it close to her mouth. "What do you see, Caleb?" she barked. "Smoke in the distance and a rider on approach," Caleb replied. "It looks like Beck." "Send my son to me, Caleb," Ginevra ordered. "We'll wait here." "Will do." A couple of minutes later, a man in all-black clothing rode the dark gray motorcycle towards them at high speed. He swerved skillfully next to the lead truck and cut the ignition. When he dismounted and removed his helmet, Garma could see that he was in his upper teens. He was lean but strong, with auburn, dreaded hair. The epicanthal folds of his eyes and the shape of his lips made Garma wonder if perhaps his human father had been of Asian descent. He was handsome for his age, but he looked worried. Ginevra approached and embraced him briefly by pulling him close and kissing his cheek. Her face appeared calm, but her eyes displayed her relief that he was all right. "What has happened, Beck?" "The military has attacked the caverns. They fell last night," he replied gravely. "How many did we lose?" "I don't know. Many. But Aunt Kess evacuated her group," Beck continued. "We only confirmed 10 more groups. Everyone is on radio silence now per emergency procedures." Ginevra had to lean against the truck as her footing became unsure. Her son helped steady her. "Only 11 groups. Out of 27? She whispered. "Yes, Matra," he replied, using his term of affection for her. After Ginevra stood up and walked back towards the vehicle, Garma finally felt able to approach her. "We can't go any further?" Garma asked. "No, we've lost the caverns," Ginevra said, mustering the strength she had. "We're going to an alternate site. Could take us a week or more to get there, and there's no guarantee it's safe either." Garma was getting used to hearing bad news like this. She now knew that nowhere on this world was truly safe for her or the resistance, but she no longer felt dread at that prospect. She felt something she didn't expect. calm. As she got back into the passenger seat of the truck, she understood something else. She had taken a great risk to support Jared in the research that ended up marooning her here. She was capable of taking such risks now, but for a different reason. Her counterpart had been a spy and assassin. But Garma was a pacifist who wanted to help people. It was an ironic juxtaposition of their lives. So many lives had been shattered and ended in the last 24 hours, and she knew this could continue regardless of anything she did or didn't do from this point. She felt small, almost insignificant. But then she considered her God, who had protected her from the experiment, the crash, and being held at knife point. He was not limited nor small in any way. She looked to him, praying for guidance and his wisdom, and for a group of people she was just beginning to experience. No matter what happened, she knew he would always be there. He had not abandoned her. He would lead her and show her the way to survive. To be continued. So, that was Singularity of Purpose. I wrote that originally as a sci-fi magazine submission. It didn't get accepted, but I'm actually fine with that. It actually, I think, could, be the pilot or the entryway to an actual series. But let me know what you think. Tell me what you think in the comments. Did you like the short story? Was it interesting to you? Would you like to learn more about this world and its struggles and peoples? I would definitely consider doing more with this. Let me know what you think. And again, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time.